One of the game's biggest personalities and players, Dave Parker was an MVP player whose on-the-field play led him to being the highest-paid player in the game, while issues on and off the field led to boosts from fans after, and what after decades of waiting led to a Hall of Fame career. So let's look at the up and downs of Dave Parker's great career.
Totally sports-esque. Major league.
Dave Parker was born in Mississippi in 1951 as one of 6 children, and when he turned 5, his family would move to Cincinnati, with Crosley Field being a short walk away. He would often take that walk and would wait for Frank Robinson and other Reds players who would often give him a glove or a ball. He would later work as a vendor at Crosley Field as a teenager. He went to Corder Technical High School, where he played football, basketball, and baseball, with football being his first love. As he said, he liked to run people over, with 60 colleges contacting him about joining their team, including many of the biggest names. But in the first game of his senior year, he would injure his left knee, which also caused him to miss his senior year of baseball. But in his junior year, he led his team in batting average, RBIs, and home runs, with his main position being catcher, as he also was a pitcher. He was being looked at by Major League scouts, with the Pirates scouting director first seeing him at a tryout camp in Columbus, and he was one of the players they were looking at, but he was not at the top of their list, and they would draft him in the 14th round in 1970. Parker insisted that he would have been a first or second round pick without the knee injury, though scouts felt he couldn't hit the ball in the air, and there were talks of him having problems with past coaches. But in the end, it was a definite steal. He was initially listed as a catcher/outfielder, but on his first day in the Rookie League, he was told to find a fielder's glove, and that would end his catching career. And in the Rookie League in 1970, he tied for the most home runs in total bases, and was named League MVP, which made him realize he was actually pretty good at baseball. And at 19, the Pirates were impressed, and they moved him up to Double-A. But he would struggle, hitting .228 with no home runs in his 30 games, leading to his demotion, in a case of trying too hard to prove himself. But he would go back to Single-A, and he went back to being a top prospect, hitting .358 with 11 home runs. Then in 1972 in Class A, he led in a number of categories both offensively and defensively, which led him to being named Player of the Year. He would be moved up to AAA in 73, and he would get off to a hot start. And it's here that the legend was born, that he hit a home run that landed on a passing train in Charleston, and was later picked up in Columbus, Ohio. He, however, said 2 years later that he hit some to the tracks, but never onto a moving train, though that is fun to believe. And when Gene Clines tore ligaments in his ankle, as he was leading the International League in average, he would be called up to the majors just a month after he turned 22. He was mainly used as a platoon player, and he hit .354 in September, to finish at .288 in the 54 games he appeared in. His second season wouldn't be much different, as his hamstring caused him to miss June and July, as he mainly platooned once again. But in 1975, Danny Murtaugh decided to play him every day, and he would blossom into a star. In his first full season of playing full-time, he played 148 games, hitting .308 with 35 doubles, 10 triples, and 35 home runs, as his .541 slugging percentage was the best in the league, while he also had the most putouts and the most errors at right field, as he would finish 3rd in MVP voting, and he would help the Pirates win the NL East for the 5th time in 6 years. And the result would be the same as it was for 4 of those years, as they would lose in the NLCS, losing to the Reds for the 3rd time in 6 years, as Parker went hitless. But he wasn't going anywhere, as the 75 season set the standard for the rest of the decade. Over the next 2 seasons, he would hit a combined .326, hitting 72 doubles, 18 triples, and 34 home runs, while driving in 178, recording the most hits in doubles in 77, as he would win the batting title with an average of .338, which he knew would happen with his great quote of "When the leaves turn brown, I'll be wearing the batting crown." He received MVP votes for the 3rd straight year, making his first All-Star game and winning his first Gold Glove, and a season where he also had 26 assists, the most by an outfielder since Roberto Clemente had 27 in 1961. In the midst of his prime in his young age, it would be 1978, where he would put it all together for his most notable season. Parker's first half saw him hit .316 with a .913 OPS, hitting 13 home runs and driving in 47 runners. But he actually did not make the All-Star team, and even if he did, he would not have been able to play, as on June 30th, in the bottom of the 9th of a game against the Mets, Bill Robinson hit a fly ball to right, and Parker attempted to tag and score the winning run, and he dove headfirst into catcher John Stearns, a former college football player who would hold on to the ball. And as a result of the play, Parker needed 3 stitches above his eyelid, and the next day, his eye was almost swollen shut. Later determined that he fractured his left cheekbone. Either way, Parker wanted to be in the lineup the next day, saying, "I'm the toughest man in the world. I can see, so I can play." But there was just no way. But it's the passion and personality that made Parker so memorable. Chuck Tanner would say on him, "There isn't a player alive who plays the game the way Dave Parker does. Every game is the 7th game of the World Series to him. There isn't a player alive who can do the things on the field that Parker can do." He would go on the DL, and when he came back, he would wear a custom hockey mask, but he would have trouble seeing pitches with a mask, and he would take the mask off, and he dropped it off at Crystal Lake. Then he would go back to a conventional helmet, though he wore a helmet with a football mask attached to it when he was on base. And he wore it a lot in the second half, as he was incredible down the stretch. Though the second half started with a slump, including going 0 for 24 at one point, he hit .381 in August, then .412 in September, which gave him 2 NL Player of the Months. He would then finish with a league best 7B WAR, winning his second straight batting title at .334, while also hitting 30 home runs and driving in .117, while leading in slug, OPS, OPS+, and total bases. And he would win his second Gold Glove, and after receiving 21 of 24 first place votes, he would win MVP, though the Pirates finished second for the third straight year. Parker was arguably the biggest name in the game at this point, and that's in part because of his great play, but also his personality. Parker was a big guy sitting at 6'5", and he was listed at 225 in his younger days. But as he said, there's only one thing bigger than me, and that's my ego. His nickname of the Cobra was given to him by the team trainer, and that fit him perfect for both his quick bat and his quick wit. Parker was the loudest guy in what was already a loud clubhouse, and he wasn't afraid to bust balls, saying without knowing any better, you would think he was a bully. But teammates would note that his taunts are purposeful in a way that can motivate someone and lighten up the clubhouse. And people also say he was an equal opportunity offender. Jerry Royce would say, it didn't matter where you were born, your ethnic heritage, religious background, or your marital status. Nothing was sacred, nor was it personal. But it was a daily comedy routine, and he of course wasn't afraid to speak his mind. Back in 1976, he signed a 3-year contract where he received salaries of $175,077, $200,078, and $225,079, and he said he immediately had regrets, as players across the league were signing bigger contracts. And he would say, putting my salary up against them is putting me up against guys who couldn't carry my bat to the plate. I feel I'm one of the best talents in baseball, and I want to be paid like one of the best. And after he won MVP, him and his agent began negotiating a new long-term contract with the Pirates, with his free agency looming. And in January of 1979, it was announced that Parker signed a 5-year contract with the team, beginning in 1979. And while the terms aside from the length were not disclosed, for years after, it was referred to as the first $1 million a year contract. But like every contract the Dodgers give out now, this was a deferred contract. He did take home $7.75 million, but it was paid out over 30 years, receiving a base salary of $300,000 for each of the 5 seasons, along with bonuses, and receiving a $1 million lump sum in 1988, followed by 222 monthly payments of $20,833.33. But fans were unaware, as the $1 million a year man label attached to him changed the perception around him. In a blue-collar city, he felt that the new contract made Pittsburgh fans see him as a $1 million man instead of the hard-working, hustling ball player. 7-figure contracts being a new thing in the time, and no matter the era, large contracts come with tons of scrutiny that Parker would become well aware of. But performing well can cover that. Parker was named an All-Star for the 3rd time in '79, and in the All-Star game in the 7th inning, Parker overran a fly ball hit by Jim Rice that would fall to the right field corner. Parker would pick it up, and he would throw a one-hop throw to third to get Rice. Then in the 8th in a tie game, Greg Nettles hit a ball to right, and Parker threw a strike home to get Gary Carter, which kept the game tied as the NL took the lead in the 9th and hung on to win, as those plays gave Parker the All-Star Game MVP, and he would continue through the second half, as he set a career high in doubles at 45, while hitting 25 home runs with a .310 average and a .906 OPS, as he won his 3rd straight Gold Glove, and he would receive MVP votes, as his teammate Willie Stargell and Keith Hernandez would share the MVP, and they would help the Pirates win the NL East after years of finishing second. And they would face a familiar opponent in the Reds, who, as mentioned, beat them 3 times the NLCS that decade, so they could only hope their fortune would change. And the series would end up just like '75, only the opposite way. Parker picked up his first postseason in Game 1, the hit coming in the 11th inning, where the Pirates picked up 3 runs to win the game. Then in Game 2, things again went to extras, and in the 10th, Parker would hit a go-ahead single to score Moreno, as he would take both games on the road. Then Game 3 wasn't much of a contest, as Parker picked up his 4th hit of the series in the game, in what was considered the game-winning RBI, as it won 7-1, and just like that, they were going to the World Series. And like they were trying to get revenge on the Reds for the past series in the decades, their opponent in the World Series was looking to do the same, as they were going up against the Baltimore Orioles, the team the Pirates beat in 7 games in 1971 to win the World Series. And in his first World Series game, Dave Parker showed up by recording 4 hits including a double, though the Pirates dropped Game 1, and though they won Game 2, they dropped the 2 after at home to fall down 3-1. But in Game 5, Parker had his 3rd multi-hit game of the series, as he would win 7-1. And in Game 6, Parker had just 1 hit, but it came in the 7th in a 0-0 game, which drove in the deciding run off Jim Palmer, as they won 4-0 to set up a Game 7. And though Parker didn't pick up any hits in that game, his teammates picked him up, as he would beat the Orioles in 7 games again, as the We Are Family Pirates won the World Series, with Parker hitting .345 in the series. While it was a great year for Parker and the entire team, fans noticed that his batting average fell 20 points, along with his RBI numbers, and some fans felt he should have had more given his new contract. Parker saying fans told him it was a bad year for making $1 million. And because of this, Parker didn't show up to the World Series parade, saying, "Why should I? Where were they when I needed them?" And things between Parker and Pirates fans would only get worse. Off the field in 1980, he was taken to court by a landscaper who said he owed him for work on his home, and also sued by Pittsburgh National Bank for missed payments on a loan, not helping with the perception, as he also went through a divorce. And on the field, he was still good in 1980, making the All-Star team and hitting .295 with 17 home runs in 139 games. But still, fans didn't feel it matched his contract, even though he played through injury much of the season. And he would deal with injuries for the rest of his time in Pittsburgh, as his numbers continued to drop, but his weight did not. Some say it was as much as 260, though he says it was 245. Either way, the added weight did not help him in any way, and tensions only became worse with him and the fans. Charlie Feeney wrote, "How popular is Dave Parker in Pittsburgh? Let's put it this way. If Parker ran for mayor unopposed, he'd lose in a landslide." With Kent Colby stating that some fans threw nuts, bolts, bullets, and batteries at Parker. 1982 was again injury-riddled, as he played just 73 games and hit only 6 home runs. But in the last year of his contract, he would lose some weight and played 144 games. And after a poor first half, he hit .305 with 9 home runs and 48 RBIs in the second half, as Pirates fans began giving him standing ovations, with a comeback coming right before he hit free agency. At the time, free agents went through the re-entry draft, where teams drafted the rights to negotiate with a player, and only 2 did for Parker, in the Reds and the Mariners. And Parker decided to go back home and sign with the Reds, where he would revitalize his career. He drove in 90 in 1984 for the first time since 1979, then 1985 was one of his best all-around seasons. He led the league in doubles and total bases for the second time, while leading in RBIs for the first time, as he hit a career-high 34 home runs, as he made his 5th All-Star team. He won his first Silver Slugger, and he would finish second in MVP voting. But his great year was overshadowed by an off-field issue, as he would testify in federal court in relation to the Pittsburgh Drug Trials. He was granted immunity in exchange for his testimony against a man who was charged with distributing cocaine to pro baseball players. Parker himself saying he used the drug from 76 to 79 consistently. Then he quit late into 1982 when his performance fell, as he also named other players who used the drug, such as the Pirates mascot. While he did not face criminal prosecution, he did face financial consequence from Commissioner Peter Ubroth, who suspended Parker and 6 other players who were involved. But those suspensions were waived when the players agreed to contribute 10% of their 1986 salaries to programs to combat drug abuse. They also agreed to submit to drug tests for the rest of their career, contribute 200 hours of community service, and participate in anti-drug programs established by MLB. The trials obviously taking a hit to the reputation of all those involved, and it got worse for Parker when the Pirates' new ownership sued Parker in an attempt to get out of making more than $5 million in deferred payments, saying his cocaine use and his failure to get in shape deprived him of what he promised to provide. A settlement was reached in 1988 without terms being announced, but team president Carl Barger said they would pay much less than what was owed under contract. Despite the off-field distractions which he was used to at this point, he again had a great year in 1986, again driving in over 100 with over 30 home runs and 30 doubles, while again leading in total bases, as he again made the All-Star team, won another Silver Slugger, and finished 5th in MVP voting. He had another pretty good year in 87, as he drove in 97. But his batting average began to dip, and he would be traded to the Oakland A's for Tim Bersas and Jose Rio. He missed some time in 1988 with a strained thumb, and he finished with a .257 average and 12 home runs in 101 games, as he would help the A's win the pennant, though they would lose to the Dodgers in the World Series. Then in 1989, he was used almost exclusively as a DH, which was a great move, as he would hit 22 home runs and drive in 97, as he won the Designated Hitter of the Year award and received MVP votes, and his presence was most felt in the playoffs. Despite his playoff experience, Game 2 of the ALCS against the Blue Jays was when he hit his first career postseason home run, and he would proceed to hit another in Game 2, 2 of his 3 hits being home runs in the series, as he helped the A's win another pennant. Mark McGwire echoing statements of past players by saying he just lifts the whole team up by his attitude and his work ethic. In the World Series against the Giants, he would hit his first World Series home run in Game 1, and recorded his second and last hit of the series in Game 2. He didn't play in Game 3, but he did have an at-bat in Game 4, almost 2 weeks after Game 2 because of the earthquake, as the A's would go on to sweep the Giants for Parker's second World Series title. Though he wasn't one of the main stars like 79, his presence was huge, as everyone would say. He was a free agent after the season, and after the A's didn't offer him a multi-year contract, he would sign a 2-year contract with the Brewers. He had another solid season in 1990 with 21 home runs and 92 RBIs, as he again won the Designated Hitter of the Year award. And as the Brewers wanted to get younger, they would trade the 39-year-old Dave Parker in the offseason for Dante Bichette. And in 91, Parker struggled with the Angels, hitting just .232 with 11 home runs. He was released on September 7th, and a week later he was picked up by the Blue Jays, who he helped win the American League East. But because he joined after September 1st, he was not eligible to play in the postseason. And it was on the Angels when his teammate Dave Winfield encouraged him to buy fast food franchises as an investment. And he would buy a Popeyes in Cincinnati along with his wife. And when no offers came in from MLB teams, he decided to retire and focus on his new line of work. In a career where he played 2,466 games, recorded 2,712 hits, 526 doubles, 339 home runs, 1,493 RBIs, with a .290 batting average, an .810 OPS, and a 40.1 WAR, making 7 All-Star teams, winning 3 Gold Gloves, 2 Silver Sluggers, 2 World Series, and winning the MVP in 1978. And in his first year of eligibility for the Hall of Fame, he would receive 17.5%, then 24.5% the next, and that was the highest it would get, as he remained on the ballot until 2011, but he only received more than 20% twice. Parker is an absolute borderline no-doubt Hall of Famer, coming real close to typical milestones with numerous accolades, but many associated Parker's low voting numbers with his involvement in the drug trials, something that really hurt Keith Hernandez, who is deserving and was really the face of the whole trial, as he received more than 10% just once, while it was also a struggle for Tim Raines, who would get in on his 10th ballot, really a precursor to those who were on the Mitchell Report. But someone like Tim Raines getting in did help Parker, along with someone like Harold Baines getting in, who, going by Jaws, ranked 79th amongst right fielders. Baines was mainly a DH at the end, but it's one of those where if he's in, then why isn't Parker? He appeared on the Veterans Committee ballot in 2020, and he received 43.8%, which was not enough. Then 5 years later, in the year we are living in, he received 87.5% of the vote, which was enough, as he will be formally inducted into the Hall of Fame in July of this year. He now helps raise money to the Dave Parker 39 Foundation to help find a cure for Parkinson's, which he was diagnosed with over a decade ago, and he is still fighting. And a career that saw ups and downs, mainly brought by issues off the field, that led him to being one of the biggest names in the game for his big personality and his play, which also led him to being the second player to receive 7 figures a year. And when he began to struggle with injuries and the off-field issues coming back to bite him, fans began to turn on him, though he would redeem himself and went back to form for the rest of his career. He can be remembered for both his off-field issues, along with his great play and personality, and most choose the latter, a great all-around player in his prime, who was the definition of a clubhouse guy, which helped every team he played for in his Hall of Fame career. Hopefully you liked this video, and if so, please consider liking and subscribing for new videos every week. Thank you.